We have my good friend Pablo Borboroglu joining us, and this is a hat trick for him. He's been with us since year one of the Global Biodiversity Festival. He is a marine biologist and a penguin conservationist. He's dedicated over 30 years of his life to the study and protection of penguins. He's the founder and president of the Global Penguin Society, an international science-based conservation coalition that protects the world's penguin species. His conservation work has been highly awarded, being recognized as a National Geographic Explorer, a Whitley Award dinner, and a Rolex laureate. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what that means at the end of his presentation. So I'm going to bring Popey in with us right now. Hey, Popey, how are you doing today?
Hello, Joe. So I'm so happy to be with you, and thank you so much for inviting me to join you again in this amazing Global Biodiversity Festival.
Of course, of course. And, it is going to be a global festival. We're going to bounce all around the world. So, I'm here in Canada, you're in Argentina. I think it's a great way to get things started.
Excellent. So thank you so much, and I'm going to start sharing so I can start showing what we do to help penguins globally. So just a second there. Okay. So there you go. So thank you so much, Joe, for this nice introduction, and thank you to all the people that are watching, joining us today, and joining us in another fantastic Global Biodiversity Festival. I am thrilled to be with all of you, sharing what we do to help penguins globally. So in this presentation, I want to show you why penguins can be seen as catalysts for global conservation change. I'm going to share with you the main issues, the main conservation issues that penguins have been facing recently, and some of our challenges and also accomplishments. So let's dive into the penguins world. So there are 18 different species of penguins in all the planet, and they breed across islands and continents throughout the southern hemisphere. But penguins are excellent indicators of the health of the oceans, and the oceans are in trouble, and so are penguins. Half of the 18 species of penguins are considered threatened, which means endangered or vulnerable, by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. Now, I want to show you the world, the planet, from the penguin perspective, which is with Antarctica in its center. So, as you can see, there are penguin colonies in Antarctica, but also in the south of Australia and New Zealand, in South Africa and Namibia, and also in 4 countries in South America. And if you take a look at the yellow arrow, that indicates the place where I am right now talking to you. I am in Patagonia, in the southern part of Argentina, close to Antarctica, and the penguins are very close to where I am right now. I'm basically in penguin land. So, contrary to the common belief that all penguins live on ice and they only live in Antarctica, there are only 4 species of penguins that breed in Antarctica, including these funny Adelie penguins that you can see in the image. But there are other species. Most of the species they breed outside of Antarctica in temperate regions, like this humble penguin that is hugging a cactus in the coastal area of Peru in a desertic area. We even have tropical penguins, like the Galapagos penguins that live in lava caves in the Galapagos Islands in Ecuador. And I don't know if you knew, but there are also penguins that nest in the forest. These are the Fiordland crested penguins that live in the south of the Island of New Zealand. And I don't know if you could find the penguin in the picture easily, but it's in the lower right part and it's hidden there. And it's very difficult to work with them because it's very difficult to find them when you work with them. They live in caves, under logs and trees, in very steep slopes in the fjords of New Zealand. So as you can see, penguins live in a wide variety of habitats and not only on ice. And penguins, they spend most of their lives in the ocean, but also live on land. So they accumulate threats in both environments. and they're very, very sensitive to all the alterations in their habitats, including climate change, fisheries, pollution, and when they come on land, they are affected by human disturbance and the introduction of unfamiliar predators. Climate change in Antarctica is changing the pattern of ice formation and melting of ice, and that affects the quality, but also the availability of habitat that penguins need to eat, but also to breed. But outside of Antarctica, climate change is affecting the availability of food because it changes the distribution of the food in the moments when penguins need the food to be close to the colonies. Because when chicks are small, the food needs to be close to the colonies. But climate change has also been increasing the frequency, the severity, the intensity, and the duration of heat waves. And penguins have a problem with heat waves because they are adapted to live in the ocean or in cold environments. So when it gets very hot, it's difficult for them to dissipate the heat. So they pant like dogs. Their bodies are covered by feathers, so they cannot eliminate the excess of heat. And like, for example, in 2019, in one of our colonies, there was a temperature of 112 degrees Fahrenheit one afternoon, and 240 healthy penguins died in one afternoon when they were trying to reach the coast to refresh themselves. And climate change, they have also been increasing the wildfires, and this is a very big problem for penguins because during their evolution they have not been exposed to fire, so penguins do not recognize fire as a threat, so they don't run away. They have been seen preening their feathers calmly behind the flames, so they stay there until they die. So this is a new threat, a new concern for penguin conservation. Fisheries are also a problem because they can compete for food with the penguins. And not only because they compete for food, but sometimes penguins, they die because they get entangled in fishing nets during the fishing operations. And unfortunately, there are also problems for penguins when they come on land to build nests. For example, last year, we reported and denounced a case in which a person with a bulldozer destroyed a big part of of a penguin colony. He destroyed 22,000 square feet of habitat. He used the bulldozer to build a road of almost 1 mile, removing all the native vegetation and also destroying the burrows where penguins nested. Penguins also nest under the bushes. So as you can see here, this is an image taken from a drone. So you can see the burrows where penguins nest and some of the bushes where penguins nest underneath. And you can clearly see the impact of that road through the middle of the penguin colony. So this is also a big problem related to human disturbance in penguin colonies. But the good news is that there are many ways we can prevent these situations. Right now, we are working in a big, challenging project to create a huge marine protected area of almost 600,000 acres in Patagonia in a place called Punta Ninfas, which is close to the place where I am right now. We want to create the area and then we will work in a participatory process involving the communities, the landowners, and the governments to make the management plan. This area is amazing, not only because there are penguins, but because there's a rich biodiversity, including whales, orcas, dolphins, different species of seabirds, and terrestrial mammals, and unique reptiles. But of course, in this area, there are also many threats. One of the threats is plastic pollution. This is an image of one of the nearby areas. Many of these plastics have come from the fisheries, like those plastic boxes that you can see there, but also a big part comes from reckless people that visit the area. This is a problem for penguins and other wildlife because they get entangled in big pieces of plastics, but sometimes they swallow the plastics, and that can harm them and can even kill them. And also, as I mentioned before, human disturbance is a big problem for penguins and for other wildlife, because people now have different kind of vehicles and they can access places that were pristine for many, many years. So the original seed of to protect this area was a colony that we discovered 14 years ago, when we discovered the colony had only 6 pairs of nests, and it was severely threatened by many threats, like human disturbance. People used to go and throw garbage, they used to hunt, they used to take dogs that were harming the penguins. So we protected that area and that colony, and the colony grew from 6 pairs to 3,600 pairs now, thanks to our conservation actions. And now, with this project, we want to expand this area and benefit more wildlife with our conservation model. In other places, through our organization, the Global Penguin Society, we are strengthening our conservation work and research work, like, for example, in New Zealand, studying the Fiordland crested penguin. One of the things we do is we track penguins, and in the next video, you can listen to Ursula. She's one of our Global Penguin Society members in New Zealand, and she's going to share some of the results with us.
So we used satellite trackers to follow their pre-molt dispersal. And we found that birds traveled up to 2,500 kilometers away, covering distances of close to 7,000 kilometers. That's halfway to Antarctica. No other crested penguin species known to travel that far during this time of their annual cycle.
The interesting thing is that this used to be one of the least studied penguins of all. So we tracked them because we thought they were going to forage very close to New Zealand. So this is New Zealand, this is Australia, and Antarctica is down here. So when we tracked them, we were very surprised to see that they travel almost 7,000 kilometers, halfway to Antarctica, which was really surprising. And this information is critical to protect the areas where they are in the ocean when we don't see them. So we also partner with colleagues in South Africa to gather information, to track penguins and gather information to help stop the plans of the fisheries to eliminate the current protected areas there. And this is very important because the African penguin population collapsed from 2.2 million breeders 100 years ago to only 20,000 now. So that is a drastic decline, and these penguins need our attention. But there is no possible conservation if we don't engage the communities and the children. So we have a huge education program in which we do a lot of activities. Like, for example, we have taken 7,000 kids from developing countries to visit their nearby penguins for the first time. Some of these kids live very close to the colonies, like half an hour drive, but they've never been able to see them and value them. And in the next video, you are going to see some of our education activities in which we take adolescents to remove plastics from penguin colonies when penguins are arriving to nest there.
Hey, Popey, the video just finished playing. It was great.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, as you can see, penguins are key for ocean conservation because of their ecological role. But it is very important to consider that people have a natural emotional connection with penguins. So, penguins can be used as the perfect tool to inspire changes in the actions and in the choices of businessmen, of decision makers, and the international community. So far, thanks to the work of the Global Penguin Society, we have been able to protect 32 million acres of penguin habitat in the ocean and on land, and we have benefited 2.4 million penguins worldwide. So we have done a lot, but there's still a lot to be done. And we will continue working very, very hard to help the penguins, the people, and the entire planet. So thank you very much. And I'm really happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, excellent. Well, Popey, thank you so much. I always love seeing the work that you're up to. You get to work with some pretty charismatic species, and I mean the conservation work speaks for itself. The numbers of penguins increasing, especially in that colony in Argentina, and I often think back to the live events we've done from the colony with the satellite units, and that's such a awesome thing to be able to take students live virtually to the colony.
Exactly, exactly. And those events are amazing because I mean, children can see live chicks and eggs. And you know, Joe, one of the most rewarding things of working with penguins is that, for example, we protected that colony, and penguins responded very quickly. You know, they could see that that was a safe place and it was healthy for them to come back, so they kept on coming. And at the beginning, there were only 6 pairs, but then you know year after year, we have like hundreds of new couples coming in and coming in. So 6 in the origin, now
Wow.
3,600 pairs. So that's really amazing. And when we go to these colonies, we say we cannot believe the numbers because fortunately, is every single year is more difficult to count them all.
Yeah. Yeah. And you kind of have a small advantage with the species you're protecting because penguins are so charismatic. Kids love penguins, adults love penguins, whereas some people maybe looking out for invertebrates and things like that have a little bit more of a challenge to get people excited about that species.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we think that we of course we work with a charismatic species, and one of the things about penguins is that they are umbrella species. So
Mhm.
they are not only charismatic, but they use the environment in a very wide way. They use vast areas in the ocean. They swim thousands and hundreds of kilometers in the ocean and also on land. So when we protect penguins, we create huge protected areas, and we benefit other species that maybe are not so charismatic, or maybe we don't know enough about them. So through the penguins, as I've shown in the picture, through the penguins, you protect big areas and you protect many other species. For example, here in the place where I am right now, we created the largest biosphere, UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. And the face of that campaign were the penguins. We protected 20 penguin colonies, but we also benefit 800 marine and terrestrial species. So the penguins are helping their friends as well.
Awesome. Absolutely. Use them to your advantage. They're a great flagship species. So in the chat, I see some people already saying hi. You've got some company in Latin America. We've got people in Quito, in Ecuador, in Argentina, and Costa Rica. So don't be shy. Use that chat sidebar and send us in some questions. One question here, Popey. You mentioned you showed that great map of the penguins' world perspective, where Antarctica is in the center, and then there's a few other places in the southern hemisphere. So what does a tropical environment need to have in order to have a penguin species? What is it about those few tropical environments that allows them to thrive?
So it's very interesting to compare the life history. I mean, the features of the penguins that live in temperate regions, like closer to Antarctica, where you have very strong and marked seasons, compared to other regions that are closer to the equator, like Galapagos or Peru, where the seasons are not so marked. Like here, for example, I am in Patagonia, penguins have left the building. I mean, because they come only here for the summer to breathe because the food is here. But when winter comes, the food is no longer here. So penguins leave, they follow the fish and they go to other latitudes. Like our penguins in Patagonia now are in Brazil, you know? So, and if you think about the penguins that are in the tropics, like the Galapagos penguins, they don't migrate, they stay year long. And instead of having one like breeding season, you have colonies like in Peru, and they are breeding all year long in different moments because there's different different availability of food like in different parts of the year. So all the how you say all the breeding biology differs completely if you compare a penguin living in the tropics and in closer to Antarctica.
All right. Another question here coming in via the chat. Actually, some more greetings too. So Brazil, India, someone else joining us in Quito as well. So it's great to see so many people joining us. And then a question here about, so penguins are distributed in very different parts of the world. So what would you suggest individuals do to help protect the species? Maybe what request do you think they could make to government?
So I think a critical thing, even if you don't live in a coastal area and if you like penguins and oceans, one of the things that I mentioned is plastic pollution. And plastic pollution reflects the way we have impacted this planet. You know, we see it. It's not like climate change that sometimes is difficult to understand or sometimes too difficult to measure. Plastic pollution, we see it, but there's a lot. The good news is that there's a lot we can do. I mean, we can start right now. When we are, I mean, every single year, 11,000 tons of plastics end up in the ocean, and that affects wildlife and different organisms. So, all of us, I mean, we all have a role to play, and if we stop, if we can avoid single-use plastics right now, at the end of the day, there will be a lot of many pieces of plastics less on our planet. So this is something that we can all do. It's up to us, and in that way we can help the penguins, the oceans, and many other marine wildlife that are affected by plastic pollution.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing point. And it is something easy for us to do, is to kind of move away from those single-use plastics. You know, the equivalent of a dump truck every minute entering our ocean. The difference that would make for not just the penguins, but many other marine species would be huge.
Yeah, exactly. And apart, yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, that it's also important because for me, I'm motivated by penguins because my grandmother, when I was small, told me about her visits to see penguins 100 years ago. That's the way I connected to nature. But all of us, we have different motivations. Maybe we are interested in butterflies or in plants or trees, whatever. So whatever we are interested in, we can learn a little bit more, and then we will value those creatures more, and we will do a lot of things to protect them. Even talking about them, if we go to a birthday party or whatever, talk to our peers, talk to our friends about the concerns, because that's a huge role that we can have in the conservation of our planet.
Absolutely. No question. And that's why I love the second video you shared of the next generation getting involved and, realizing the importance of protecting not only species, but the ecosystem and what it means to us. So amazing work you're doing. And I want to make sure that we share the link to your website. So if anybody wants to visit globalpenguinsociety.org, find out more about the incredible work that Popey is doing along with his team. And then, of course, support in any way that you can, because that's so important for keeping the work going.
Excellent. And apart from that, if people want to join us on Instagram, we are all the time posting things that we are witnessing with penguins live from the field, and so we're very happy if people, even if people can want to write us. I am the one also answering the questions, so we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, perfect. Well, like I said, Popey, I can't think of anyone better to have kicked us off. It's a hat trick for you, 3 years in a row joining us at the Global Biodiversity Festival. It is so good to see you virtually, and I can't wait to see you in New York in a few weeks. Thank you so much for all the incredible conservation work you do.
No, thank you so much for inviting me. Have a fantastic festival. I'm sure it will be a complete success, just like the other ones.